The Wayfarer dropped out of hyperspace with the elegance of a brick hitting atmosphere. Warning klaxons blared, but Captain Alara Voss barely flinched. She was too busy gripping the armrest of her chair, eyes fixed on the violent red orb below. Draugr 7, a graveyard of failed expeditions. If they didn't beat the odds, they'd be the latest additions. Alara, we've got a problem, came Dr. Jasper Jazz Molina's voice over comms. Actually, several problems. I can list them alphabetically if you'd like. No need, she said. Just the worst one. Well, considering the Zathid orbital defenses just turned our shields into confetti, I'd say the worst problem is that we're about to crash. Helpful, she muttered. Omar, Sam brace. Lieutenant Omar Chaik had already secured himself, his calm at odds with the violent shuddering around them. Across from him, Sam Patel was grinning like an idiot. The Wayfarer was plummeting toward a planet filled with acid storms and killer aliens, and Sam looked like he'd just won a vacation. Gotta say, Sam called out, not my worst landing. No. Omar arched a brow. What was? There was this time on Titan. The ship slammed into the surface, skidding across blackened rock, metal screaming as heat shields peeled away. The harness bit into Alara's shoulders before they finally came to a shuddering halt. For a moment, silence. Then Jazz coughed. Well, that went about as well as expected. Alara unclipped her restraints. Systems, life support's holding. Hull's a mess, but we won't implode. Oh, and we've definitely got company. Omar was already peering out the viewport. Between jagged cliffs and phosphorescent fog, dark figures moved. Chitinous limbs, multifaceted eyes catching the dim light. The Zathid, they knew we were coming, Omar murmured. They always do. Alara grabbed her rifle. All right, people, we're on a ticking clock. We get in, grab the precursor tech, and get out before we become Zathid dinner. Move. The landscape was hostile in every conceivable way. Draugr 7's air was thick with particulate toxins. Even through their filters, it smelled of decay. The ground trembled at irregular intervals, seismic instability threatening to split the very ground they walked on. Lightning crackled in the distance, green and unnatural. And then there were the bodies. Past expeditions had been reduced to twisted remains, their armor corroded, weapons scattered. Some still clutched rifles and skeletal grips, as if they'd died fighting something they never saw coming. Jazz exhaled sharply. This place has history. Tragic history, Omar corrected. But history will survive. Sam nudged a helmet with his boot. Speak for yourself. These guys had better gear than us, and look how that turned out. Alara scanned the ruins ahead. They weren't us. Stay sharp. The first attack came swiftly, a blur of movement. Then the ground erupted, and a Zathid warrior burst from the soil, all serrated limbs and needle-tipped mandibles. It lunged at Alara, but she was already moving, rifle barking in short, precise bursts. The creature shrieked and collapsed, ichor pooling beneath it. Then the horde came. Dozens of Zathid swarmed from the cliffs, their clicking language a cacophony in the dense air. The humans fell into formation without hesitation. Omar was precise and methodical, his pistol taking down targets with ruthless efficiency. Jazz was less refined but equally effective, hefting a jury-rigged plasma cutter. He sliced through anything that got too close. Sam, unsurprisingly, fought with reckless abandon, using explosives far too liberally for anyone's comfort. Alara kept them moving, every shot purposeful. But for every Zathid they killed, more emerged. They weren't winning this fight. We need an exit. Jazz yelled. There. Omar pointed. A crumbling structure jutting from the cliffside, half buried beneath alien growths. Precursor ruins. Their objective. Alara didn't hesitate. Move. They sprinted for the entrance, weapons blazing. Zathid warriors closed in from all sides. But at the last moment, a thunderous boom echoed through the valley. The cliffside collapsed. Sam, grinning wildly, tossed aside a spent detonator. Love these things. Dust choked the air, and for a brief, blissful moment, silence returned. They stumbled inside the ruins, sealing a heavy door behind them. Outside, the Zathid chittered and shrieked, unable to breach the thick precursor alloy. Alara exhaled. That was too close. Jazz, panting, leaned against the wall. We are so going to die here. Omar dusted off his rifle. Not today. Alara turned toward the depths of the ruins, eyes narrowing. The air hummed with latent energy. Somewhere within these halls lay the technology they'd come for. The technology that could change humanity's fate. They had no idea what awaited them, but they would find out soon enough. The ruins stretched before them, like a maze designed to confound the unprepared. Ancient corridors, illuminated only by the flickering glow of their wrist lights, twisted into darkness. The air thrummed with unseen energy, powerful, alien, and waiting. Alara kept her rifle raised. Stay sharp. We don't know what's still active in here. Jazz, eyes flicking between his scanner and the walls, muttered, considering precursor tech is either priceless or homicidal. I'd bet on actively trying to kill us. Omar ran his fingers along the carvings lining the passage. This script is older than anything we've seen before. More intricate. Sam snorted. Great. Maybe it'll tell us where the instant victory button is. A sudden tremor cut through the ground, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Then a click. Move! Alara shouted. The corridor erupted. Automated turrets descended from the walls, their cores flaring to life. Bright blue plasma lanced through the air, forcing the team into a desperate sprint. Jazz hurled an EMP charge over his shoulder, the device detonating with a pulse that shorted 2 turrets, but not all of them. Omar dove behind a crumbled console, covering Sam as he vaulted over debris. Alara squeezed off 2 precise shots, disabling a turret mid-fire. Jazz was already at the nearest control panel, fingers flying. Working on it, A turret swiveled toward him. Omar tackled Jazz aside just as plasma seared the ground where he'd stood. Sam, laughing wildly, lobbed an explosive up into the turret housing. The blast rocked the chamber, sending shrapnel cascading as the turrets powered down. Silence. Jazz lay on his back, panting. I hate this planet. Alara yanked him up. Then let's not stay longer than necessary. As they moved deeper into the ruins, their surroundings became stranger. Gravity wavered in places, pulling them in unnatural directions. The walls pulsed with an eerie, shifting light. Occasionally, a hum vibrated through the floor, rattling their bones. Then they found the bodies. Unlike the ones outside, these weren't human. Zathid corpses littered the chamber, burned, shredded, twisted beyond recognition. Omar crouched beside one, running his hand over the shattered carapace. They fought something here. Jazz scanned the remains. And lost. Sam nudged a particularly gruesome chunk with his boot. So, we're next. Alara's gaze locked onto the far end of the chamber. A massive door, pulsating with dormant energy, loomed before them. It was undeniably precursor in origin, its mechanism still intact after untold centuries. This is it. She approached the console beside it. We find out what's inside. Jazz hesitated. Let's assume opening that means something terrible happens. Sam smirked. When has that ever stopped us? Alara entered the activation sequence. The door trembled, symbols flaring to life. The air shifted. Then, from the darkness beyond the threshold, something stirred. The chamber beyond the door pulsed with an eerie, golden light. Unlike the ruins outside, this space was pristine, untouched by time, war, or decay. Ancient mechanisms lined the walls, their strange, organic curves pulsating faintly as if breathing. And in the center of the room stood a throne. Not an ordinary one. This was something alien, ancient, its structure shifting subtly even as they observed it. Upon its seat, slumped in a position of eerie repose, was a humanoid figure. Not Zaphid, not human, something older. Then it moved. A slow, deliberate inhalation rattled the air, and the figure straightened. Its eyes flickered open, revealing pits of radiant silver light. The room's golden glow intensified, as if responding to its presence. Omar exhaled sharply. "That's not a corpse." The being tilted its head, regarding them. Then, in a voice that felt like it bypassed their ears and resonated directly in their skulls, it spoke. "Flesh-born interlopers, you awaken what should remain buried." Jazz's fingers tightened around his scanner. "So, that's a no on peaceful negotiations?" The room shook. The walls lit up with sudden, violent energy, circuits flaring to life. The precursor stepped forward, and where its foot touched the ground, the floor shifted, metal reshaping itself like liquid, forming weapons. Alara gritted her teeth. "We need to run. Now." But before they could retreat, the ruins came alive. The chamber was no longer a place of stillness. Glistening walls pulsated, channels of light running like liquid through ancient circuitry. The air grew thick, buzzing with invisible force. The very architecture seemed to waken alongside the precursor. Its dormant sentience rekindled. A deep, sonorous hum resonated, and the ground shifted beneath their feet. Alara stumbled, barely managing to keep her rifle raised. Tendrils of metal and light unfurled from the walls, twisting like mechanical serpents. They coiled toward the intruders, reaching hungrily. "Move, move, move," she barked. Sam was already reacting, dodging a whip-like appendage that lashed toward his midsection. "Oh, great! The building wants to kill us too." He fired a plasma bolt at the tendril, but it absorbed the energy, its surface rippling as though amused. Jazz pulled a small device from his belt, scanning furiously. "These aren't just defenses. They're extensions of it. The entire structure is linked to the precursor's will." "Fantastic," Omar muttered, backing toward the exit as more tendrils sprouted, blocking their retreat. "Can you shut it down?" Jazz grimaced. "Not before we're reduced to component atoms." The precursor descended the steps of its throne, slow but deliberate. Its voice echoed through the chamber, heavy with millennia of disdain. "Your kind was never meant to tread here. You are echoes of imperfection, fleeting anomalies in a cycle you cannot comprehend." Sam scowled. "Man, I hate the all-knowing types." Without warning, the precursor raised an arm, and the air compressed. A force slammed into them like a gravity wave, sending them skidding across the floor. Alara gasped as her limbs felt impossibly heavy, the pressure bearing down like an ocean's weight. "We're not going to win a direct fight," Omar gritted out, straining against the unseen force. Alara's mind raced. The precursor was powerful, but it was also old. A being of calculation, arrogance. It wasn't expecting unpredictability. She forced herself upright, muscles screaming. "Sam, you still got that demolition charge." Sam, pinned to the floor, grinned through the pain. "I like where this is going." Jazz's eyes widened. "Oh no. Oh, absolutely not. We can't blow up an ancient superstructure while we're inside it." Sam winked. "Sure we can. We just have to be fast." With sheer determination, he reached into his vest, fumbling for the charge. The precursor noted the movement, its silver eyes narrowing. "Primitive defiance," it mused. It raised a hand. A spear of solid light formed in its grasp. Alara's instinct screamed. "Now!" Sam activated the charge and threw it. The explosive arced through the air. The precursor caught it. For a split second, it seemed victorious. Then it realized what it was holding. Sam, still grinning, whispered, "Boom." The explosion rocked the chamber. Light and metal tore apart, shockwaves ripping through the precursor's throne. The being let out a sound. Not quite a roar, more like a ripple of distorted reality. Its form flickered, destabilized. The impact sent the team sprawling, but the pressure holding them vanished. Alara didn't hesitate. Run! They bolted for the exit as the chamber collapsed behind them. The tendrils lashed wildly, now out of control. The ruins, once a temple of stillness, were unraveling into chaos. Jazz panted as they sprinted. Please tell me we didn't just. Not the whole place. Alara snapped. Just enough to buy us time. A furious, warping howl echoed behind them. The precursor wasn't dead. Not fully, but it was angry. They burst through the threshold just as the entrance sealed shut, locking the ancient horror inside for now. They didn't stop running. Outside, the storm had picked up. The Zathid forces were waiting. Omar groaned. Because of course they are. Alara, breathless, adjusted her rifle. All right, we just barely survived an ancient demigod. A bunch of bugs? I can handle. Sam cocked his pistol. You know, I'm starting to think humans might actually deserve our reputation. Jazz wiped dust from his visor. Remind me to have a long talk with whoever sent us on this mission. Outside, the storm howled, the wind whipping across the desolate landscape as the team skidded to a halt. Their lungs burned from exertion, but there was no time to rest. Ahead, the Zathid warband had formed a blockade, their towering, insectoid forms bristling with plasma weaponry. An ambush. Omar cursed under his breath. We've got hostiles at 12 o'clock. Alara wiped sweat from her brow, gripping her rifle. Great. Any bright ideas? Jazz, eyes scanning frantically, muttered. Yeah. Survive. The first shot came screeching through the storm, a molten bolt of energy that exploded just meters away. The ground shuddered, throwing dust and debris into the air. The Zathid surged forward in perfect unison, mandibles clicking in eerie synchronization. Sam grinned despite the odds. All right, bugs. You want us? Come and get us. He raised his rifle and let loose a volley of fire, the plasma bolts searing through the storm. Omar and Alara followed suit, their shots precise, coordinated. For a brief moment, the charge faltered. The Zathid weren't expecting resistance this fierce, but there were too many. Jazz pulled a small cylindrical device from his belt and hurled it into the advancing horde. Flash out! A pulse of brilliant white erupted, sending the first wave of Zathid staggering, their multifaceted eyes overloaded. A small advantage, but an advantage nonetheless. Go! Now! Alara barked, leading the charge through the disoriented aliens. They weaved between enemy fire, their movements driven by instinct and desperation. Every step counted. Every second mattered. Then the ground trembled. A deep, reverberating hum filled the air. Something behind them was stirring. The precursor. Alara risked a glance back. The ruins' entrance, where they had locked the ancient horror inside, was fracturing. Golden energy bled through the cracks. Oh, you have got to be kidding me, Omar groaned. Jazz paled. It's breaking free. The Zathid, sensing the shift, hesitated. Some turned, their antennae twitching in sudden uncertainty. The others, those closest to the ruins, began screeching, a cacophony of raw, primal terror. And then, in a blinding eruption of light, it emerged. The precursor, no longer confined, stood at the threshold, its body flickering between solid and incorporeal, tendrils of light coiling around it like a living storm. Its silver eyes locked onto the battlefield. You are all lesser things. Without hesitation, it extended a hand, and reality itself shattered. A dozen Zathid warriors simply ceased to exist, erased in an instant. The survivors screeched in panic, breaking ranks. The warband collapsed into chaos, their disciplined formation replaced by sheer, primal fear. Sam exhaled. Well, that's one way to solve our problem. Alara, eyes locked on the entity, didn't share his relief. It's not fighting for us. It's just killing everything in its path. Jazz's hands moved in a blur, tapping commands into his wrist-mounted holo-display. I might have something. Omar glanced at him. Please tell me it's an escape plan. Better. Jazz's lips twisted into a grin. A nuke. Silence. Then Sam let out a laugh. I take back everything bad I ever said about you. Alara's heart pounded. How fast can you trigger it? Not fast enough if we don't move, Jazz said. We need to lure it into the blast zone. The team exchanged glances. It was a long shot. A suicidal long shot. But it was the only chance they had. Alara's voice was steel. Let's finish this. The team ran. Through the battlefield. Through the dying storm. Leading the precursor toward its end. The air crackled behind them. Its presence a force of nature, bending reality in its wake. As they reached the designated coordinates, Jazz gave the signal. Now! Omar spun, raising his rifle. Sam and Alara followed suit. One last stand. The precursor stopped, sensing the defiance in their stance. It raised a hand. Jazz pressed the detonator. The world erupted. A blinding explosion consumed the battlefield, swallowing the ruins, the Zathid, and the precursor in an instant of pure, searing annihilation. The shockwave ripped across the landscape, sending the team sprawling, their bodies battered by the sheer force. Then silence. A deep, empty stillness. Alara coughed, rolling onto her back. The air was quiet. The ruins gone. The precursor gone. Sam groaned, pushing himself up. So, we win. Omar let out a weak laugh. I'm alive. So yeah, let's call it a win. Jazz, covered in dust, exhaled. Next time, we take a safer mission. Alara sat up, staring at the horizon. The storm had cleared. The sky was open again. Humanity had survived. She smiled. Let's go home.